Continuing our coverage of the Scouting Combine from Indianapolis, plus talking to plenty of coaches and general managers. Joining us now, the second-year head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He is Brian Callahan. Brian, it feels like just yesterday.
It does.
We were doing this.
It does.
Probably right about in the exact same spot.
Yeah, just about. No, it goes quick. It goes quick, and it was a tough, challenging season, but I have a chance to try to get our team better.
Give me one thing you've learned over the course of the last year that you wish you'd known when you were sitting here last year.
How hard it was going to be. It's so much harder. The first year, just the accumulation of all the things from off-season program through training camp through the season, just the ups and downs of it all. It was it's very, very challenging, and you got to have a lot of good people around you. And thankfully, that part I think I got right. But it was hard, and get up in front of the media every week and things not going the way you hope they would go. It's challenging.
How do you balance that, right? Going from OC and all I have to do is worry about that, and now you're the head coach, and I still want to be the OC and do all this, but damn, there's always something on my plate that has nothing to do with OC. How does that adjustment go?
It does take some time and adjustment. There's a lot of things that you have to go through, but again, I think the most important part is you have good people around you, and I think our offensive staff is really strong. We got a lot of good coaches, and they help that process quite a bit.
Yeah.
How do you balance, as the guy whose team holds the first overall pick in the draft, the possibility of getting one guy who's going to change everything versus maybe slipping out of that spot and getting a bunch of different pieces that can help the team in multiple different areas?
Both those things are enticing. You know, if that's the way, if you had a crystal ball and could say you draft a franchise-changing player at number one, you certainly love to do that. Or you can build your team like a lot of these teams have where they've traded and acquire more draft capital. So the best part is I think we control that part of it, and we're in a position where whatever makes the most sense to build a team, we have the opportunity to do. So it's a position I'm not excited to be in because it meant we didn't play very well, but it's one that we have a chance to hopefully change our team dramatically, whether we trade it or whether we draft a player we think can change our franchise.
Where are you in the process now? Like, I always find it interesting because, like, free agency's coming, right? You probably haven't studied these guys in depth yet. So where are you as far as, the top guys in the draft and your feel for them a little bit?
I would say I got a pretty good feel for the top guys. I've watched those guys pretty intently. All the guys that are in that conversation.
Yes.
But this is sort of the first introduction to a lot of the draft class for as a coach. Is this the beginning of the process?
Right. Sure.
Had a little bit of exposure at the East West and the Senior Bowl, but this is really the start of it for us. Is we've finished our self-scout and now we jump into the scouting process from now until the draft.
Yeah.
What have been your communications, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing them, with Will Levis about his status and his future?
Yeah, I was very transparent with Will at the end of the season. He knows that at minimum there's going to be competition based on where we're at in the draft and where we're at free agency-wise, that there's a very high likelihood there'll be another quarterback involved in our process. And so he's aware of that. But I think the best part about it for Will is that he just needs to focus on what he needs to do better. And there is nothing he can control. It's all out of his hands, and I imparted on him the best course of action for him would be to get as good as you can get, do all the work you have to do, and be ready to compete. Improve your game and improve your process, and the rest of it's not in your hands. So don't worry about it.
Where does he lose it? And I don't want to say it in a negative way, but like, he's got talent. We see that.
Yes.
He's damn strong, good athlete, all of that. But there's always these, like, what the hell moments, right?
Yeah.
What is it in your assessment that he does in his own brain and his game there to kind of go down this path?
There's a moment that happens where the decision gets made, like in a snap spot, that he's got to clean up. And we've had those conversations. That's not something that we haven't talked about. I'm not talking out of turn.
Yeah.
But those are the things we got to eliminate. And I think if you can eliminate the mistakes that we can control, we have a chance to play a lot better brand of football. And him as well.
Right.
If he can eliminate some of those errors that are controllable, I think he's got a chance to improve his play.
Is it like one of those where you go, he tries to do too much, or he thinks too much of his talent at times and thinks he can just overcome anything?
I think depending on what the error is, you can make a case for all that stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
But again, he wants to win. He wants to be a good player. He's passionate about it. Those things are all positive.
Right.
And sometimes you try to do a little too much at the wrong time, it can hurt the football team.
The issue of controlling what you can control also applies to you. There have been many changes in the front office in the recent weeks. From your perspective, how does that affect your job? What does that do as it relates to your considerations moving forward? Just when you're the one who can't control these significant changes. How do you proceed?
Just as you always do, and for the same thing I said to Will, it's my own advice to myself too, is that I got to coach better. That's the first and foremost. I got a lot of faith in Mike Borgonzi and the guys that we brought in. I've known these guys for a long time as well. They're really, really sharp personnel people. And so I trust that. And I trust that they're trying to do the best thing for the Tennessee Titans just like I am. And my job is to coach the players, and I got to do a much better job of that. We have to do a better job as a staff, and I think we will. And I'm excited about what's to come and where those guys are in terms of the vision of how to build the football team. So those things are all things that I don't control, but when the time comes time to coach, that's what I do control, and got to do a much better job than we did this year.
Your dad, the O-line coach, right? Got to be cool working with dad, but I don't want to hear the cool parts.
Sure.
When did we get into any yelling or F-bombs or hey,
No.
Screw you, Dad, or any of that during any of the good stuff?
No, I think that's been the fun part of the season is how well we work together. You never know. When we talked last time a year ago, we hadn't sort of been through it together, and that's been the really fun part is how well we kind of worked through our the sticky spots over the course of the season.
Right.
And, he was a huge asset to me from his experience as a head coach and the things that he was able to sort of see ahead of time, and he sort of presents things like, hey, why don't you think about this?
Right.
And why don't you think about this? He never really tells me you need to do this or that. He just presents things to think about, and most of the time he's usually pretty spot on.
Pretty spot on, yeah. Yep.
Miami quarterback Cam Ward recently said, if you don't draft me, that's your fault, and I'll remember that. How do you react when you hear that kind of a warning?
I like the confidence. I think you have to be that. When you're in position to potentially get taken in the first part of the draft, there's a lot of pressure and expectation that comes with that. So that confidence is a good thing. I do take some of the actual content of it with a grain of salt. A lot of guys say that. I think a lot more of it's you'd like to see it. Just you got to prove it.
Yeah, right.
That part is the other section that matters more. Is you got to go prove that. But the confidence in and of itself, with the pressure that's on guys like that are going to get picked in the top 3, 4, 5 picks of the draft, you have to have that.
Right. Is there a position there you feel like is harder to evaluate than others? I think everybody has their kryptonite of a little bit. We've had a few GMs say safety is the hardest one or the most annoying. Right. Raheem Morris talked about quarterback. Is there one for you where you're I'm not as good at that position, or they're annoying to me maybe compared to others?
Yeah, I sometimes have a hard time just from an offensive perspective of what separates inside linebackers.
Yeah,
right?
gotcha.
We all know Roquan Smith is a great player, but there's a lot of in between there.
Right.
And so how do you know which one's gonna translate into those type of players? That one's always tricky for me.
Yeah, cool. That's cool to hear.
All right, well, congratulations on year 1 under the belt. All
Thanks.
the best year 2. Brian Callahan, Titans head coach. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.